So I saw things go south between you and Tucker, at least from my vantage point, when you disagreed on Israel. That was obvious. And he was, well, let me just make my point.
Sure.
And so he was saying things that were critical of Israel and our policy towards Israel. And then you did one show where you did what I thought you should have done if you disagreed with him, which clearly you did, which is say what you believe and what you think is factual, and like educate your audience on what you think are the real facts and give them the evidence for it. But you named him, and it felt like an attack. And that, to me, was the beginning of the end, where he was like, now it's on. Because he felt personally attacked by you, as opposed to just challenging his idea. I think you named him and you kind of diminished him. And, you know, he's an 800-pound gorilla, and if you mess with a gorilla, he's gonna fight. And to me, that's where it started to go south. And because I remember that day being like, oh shit.
Well,
I don't want to see this.
But here's the thing. I would urge everybody to go back and listen to the show that you're referring to, where I criticized Tucker's ideas, not Tucker as a person. Tucker then responded by claiming that I do not love America. That is a direct quote. That I do not love America because I was spending too much time covering the October 7th attacks, and then proceeded in January to then say that I wanted his children to die in a foreign war. Okay, so those are different.
That's a rhetorical.
No, it is
point.
not. I'm sorry, it's not. An attack on motivation is a very different thing from an attack on an idea.
His point was that you were sounding like a neocon, and he's upset with anybody who wants us to get too involved in Israel's conflict because he feels it endangers American children.
Okay, the idea that, number one, the idea that I want the United States to be directly involved in Israel's conflict is not true.
No, I know that, Ben.
I've been urging Israel to get off of American aid for literally as long as I have been active in politics.
But I'm making clear what his point was.
But my point is that that's not his point. And again, none of this.
So we disagree.
We disagree on the interpretation of what Tucker has been doing for the past 2 years, and it's very difficult for me to believe that Tucker is merely anti-Israel when, for example, today, in his newsletter, I mean, I can directly quote it if you'd like, in his newsletter today, he claimed that Zoran Mamdani is not anti-Semitic. This was his newsletter today, this morning. I mean, I'm happy to read the text. It's a little extraordinary because, again, it is kind of shocking stuff. So here's what Tucker Carlson wrote in his newsletter today, or what his newsletter says under his name. He said, "Is the incoming mayor a fan of Israel? Does he want America to fight its wars? Not particularly. But a Jew hater? That's a different conversation. We've never seen anything to suggest he falls into that ugly camp. If we're talking about fighting the left, defending Zoran Mamdani, who literally said that he has no opinion whether Hamas should disarm, who posed alongside the 1993 World Trade Center unindicted co-conspirator, who would not disown globalize the Intifada, who suggested that whenever there is a New York Police Department boot on somebody's neck, it's an IDF lacing the strings, to suggest that that's not anti-Semitic in any way, no way.
Okay, but listen.
Or I'm
going to give you a defense of Tucker here, and I don't need to defend Tucker because I'm not Tucker.
Tucker can
but
perfectly
I'll
well
just
defend
say,
himself.
I think in general, because I know him and I listen to him and I understand generally where he's coming from. He would say his problems are with Israel, and he would say that shot that Mamdani laid against the IDF is a shot against the IDF. And Israel and how he thinks they're pro-war, not against Jews.
Okay.
And I think
all I can say is when Tucker Carlson finds himself in complete alignment with Zoran Mamdani, it is very difficult for me to believe that he does not agree with Zoran Mamdani.
I think Tucker is in a place right now of the same place that Charlie was getting to toward the end of his life, the same place that some people had tried to drive me, which is you're under withering, nonstop accusations of being something you know you're not. But from some people who you love and who you've been protecting, at least in my case and Charlie's case, for 2 years, who you've been completely defensive of.
Megyn,
And Charlie and I both felt, because we talked about this on my show, like, what's happening here? Why are they dropping charges of anti-Semitism against us when we love Jews and we're both open Semites? We're Zionists.
The detailed interview conducted by Megyn Kelly with Ben Shapiro is far less a conventional heated argument between the two commentators and far more an intense, almost prosecutorial examination of the ongoing public feud between Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. Kelly deliberately assumes the role of an aggressive, skeptical interrogator, compelling Shapiro to move beyond mere political opinion and to actively defend the strategic and moral calculus behind his aggressive public criticism of a high-profile conservative peer. This dynamic elevates the segment from simple punditry into a high-stakes moment of political theater, forcing into the light the profound ideological and methodological divisions that have become endemic within the American right, specifically concerning the moral necessity of policing the movement's fringes, the direction of foreign policy, and the fundamental definition of what it means to be a modern American conservative. The underlying tension of the conversation is palpable, driven by Shapiro's readiness to present definitive, emotional, and textual evidence, including private text messages with Carlson, to rigorously justify his decision to burn a bridge with a once friendly, incredibly influential figure. According to Shapiro, the singular, non-negotiable catalyst for the public and seemingly irreparable rupture between himself and Carlson centers squarely on Nick Fuentes. Shapiro characterizes Fuentes using language of absolute moral condemnation, labeling him not merely an extremist, but a truly horrifying person and pointedly a Hitler-loving troll. Shapiro intentionally introduces a jarring, personal touch by playing a clip of Fuentes explicitly mocking him, an act designed to frame the political disagreement as a direct confrontation with a tangible, personalized threat. The unforgivable act, in Shapiro's eyes, was not just Fuentes' existence, but Carlson's decision to grant him a mainstream platform. Shapiro accuses Carlson of employing his vast media influence to interview Fuentes using kid gloves, a passive approach that Shapiro sees as fundamentally corrupting, turning Carlson into an ideological launderer for reprehensible, unacceptable ideas. For Shapiro, this act of normalization represents a categorical moral and ideological failure, one that immediately and irrevocably voids any professional or personal obligation to maintain civility or silence. The integrity of the movement, in this interpretation, must supersede all personal loyalties. The most forceful and relentless challenge from Megyn Kelly, however, is directed squarely at the rhetorical and tactical choices made by Shapiro himself. Kelly expresses conceptual agreement with the principle of fighting against and exposing bad ideas, yet she fundamentally and forcefully contests the method Shapiro chose to execute that duty. She suggests that Shapiro committed a crucial strategic error by moving the criticism from the realm of the intellectual to the realm of the personal, asserting that by publicly ing him and targeting him, Shapiro guaranteed a destructive, retaliatory response from the powerful figure she describes as the 800-pound gorilla. Kelly posits that a more responsible, effective approach would have been for Shapiro to challenge the problematic ideas directly and fiercely without simultaneously attempting to diminish or personally attack their source. In her view, it was this initial calculated tactical move that caused the necessary debate to needlessly spiral into an ego-driven, highly emotional, and ultimately distracting feud. Shapiro, naturally, is ready with his own powerful rebuttal to this claim of his own primary culpability. He firmly insists that his initial critiques were scrupulously aimed at Carlson's ideas, specifically on the subject of Israel and interventionist foreign policy, and that it was Tucker Carlson, not he, who immediately and inexcusably escalated the entire dispute into a realm of personal, character-assassinating rhetoric. Shapiro cites direct, public quotes from Carlson, including the accusation that he do not love America, and a later, even more inflammatory suggestion that Shapiro harbored a desire for Carlson's children to die in a foreign conflict. For Shapiro, any attack on a person's core motive, patriotism, or family crosses a profound and permanent moral line, making any form of professional accommodation or continued public silence entirely impossible. This entire drama is further and deeply contextualized by a profound disagreement over what should constitute the shared, core mission of the conservative movement, and who is betraying that mission. Shapiro voices deep and genuine sorrow that Carlson is no longer dedicating his immense influence to what Shapiro believes should be the unified paramount goal. The fight that matters, which he defines as the unified, relentless opposition to the progressive political left. Shapiro provides a compelling piece of evidence for this accusation by claiming that Carlson has spent an inordinate amount of time since the feud began doing literally nothing to fight the left. A claim he attempts to solidify by contrasting his own output, which he proudly notes included 17 separate shows focused on the progressive politician Zoran Mamani, with Carlson's. This sharp disparity in tactical focus becomes a powerful argumentative tool for Shapiro, suggesting that Carlson has not merely changed his mind on a few issues, but has fundamentally abandoned the core ideological mandate of conservative leadership. This argument is seemingly cemented when Shapiro introduces and critiques Carlson's recent newsletter, which he interprets as not only a defense of Mamani, but a denial of his alleged anti-Semitism, an editorial move that Shapiro forcefully frames as an extraordinary and final proof that Carlson has shifted his ideological center to a position that Shapiro and his allies simply cannot recognize or tolerate. Megyn Kelly, however, is keen to provide a degree of necessary intellectual buffer and a more sympathetic interpretation of Carlson's core motivation, suggesting that his pointed criticism is directed entirely at neoconservative foreign policy and entanglement in global affairs, especially those concerning Israel, rather than being fueled by underlying anti-Semitism. She attempts to draw a meaningful distinction, suggesting that Carlson's ire is specifically aimed at the foreign state and its military, the IDF, not at Jewish people as an ethnic or religious group, a crucial distinction that Shapiro immediately and forcefully rejects as intellectually untenable given the context of Carlson's chosen allies and rhetoric. This fundamental, irreconcilable disagreement over motive illuminates the deepest, most enduring ideological fault line currently running through the American right. The chasm separating the traditional, internationally focused, Reaganite conservatism championed by Shapiro and the new, inward-looking, populist nationalism that has been so powerfully embraced by Carlson and the most vocal, influential segments of the Trump-era base. The battle is thus revealed to be about far more than just policy. It is a desperate, existential struggle for the very soul and future of American conservatism itself. The interview ultimately transforms into a philosophical debate on the necessary ethics of professional conduct in the hyperpolarized modern media landscape. Kelly, seeking to challenge Shapiro's self-appointed role as the movement's moral arbiter, returns to the example of Candace Owens's most controversial comments to ask Shapiro why he feels an absolute compulsion to publicly label Owens evil and engage in this damaging internal policing, when a more practical choice would simply be to ignore her, a path Kelly herself prefers. Shapiro's concluding, unwavering response serves as the distillation of his entire position. In their specific line of work, where the promulgation of ideas carries massive real-world consequences, the manifest requirement to speak out against perceived moral and ideological poison must always, without exception, trump friendship. The conversation concludes as a powerful, unsettling snapshot of a once unified political movement now irrevocably shattered, with its most influential, authoritative voices publicly turning on one another. It confirms that for figures like Ben Shapiro, ideological integrity and absolute moral clarity, as he defines them, are simply non-negotiable principles, regardless of the cost, even if that cost is the permanent creation of a major, powerful enemy within the very ecosystem he seeks to defend.